My first impression of the family is that there's some learning disability that runs through the family. That's apparent. When I first spoke with Eunice, it only took me a couple minutes to realize that she's severely learning disabled, borderline retarded, or retarded. You know, there's a certain amount of nobility to Eunice in the fact that she tries really hard, she doesn't know her own limitations, and she thinks she can do a lot more than she actually can do. You know, this was the first time that Eunice was living on her own. She'd only been living on her own for 90 days, and this was really her first job. And within 90 days, there's a little kid who's dead. So, it's tragic all around, but, hopefully I'm going to be able to help Eunice avoid a double tragedy, which is get convicted of murder. Now, somehow they managed to get a signed confession from Eunice that she planned this for several days. So the confession is an impossibility. But Eunice is someone who would confess to the assassination of John F. Kennedy if she thought she could go home.
She was functioning fairly well in the community that she was living in. She was probably as smart as a lot of the people that she was hanging around with, and that it really wouldn't take very much intelligence to figure out that if someone is pounding on the door and screaming, let me out, that what you should do is let them out of the room, and that there must be some evil in Eunice Baker to make her not let that child out of that room.
In Owego, a small rural community, stealing a car is considered front-page news. Murders are unheard of. In this town, many people are poor and uneducated. When people are poor, they suffer, and when people suffer, they look for someone to blame. Eunice was picked out and singled out because she was the one least able to defend herself. When she was first arrested, the TV station carried her picture. Every hour they flashed her picture on the TV. And then when the news report came on, they had more, pictures of her and said she was accused of murdering the Kurtz child. So it had so much news coverage at this point that for this size town and community, it's going to be impossible to find jurors that haven't been exposed to this.
On the night of June 28th in the morning, June 29th, 1999, I was babysitting Charlotte Kurtz. I arrived at their house like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I didn't know it was getting hot. First it was cool in the house, then later on at night it started getting very hot in the house. And I was told to put her to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock and lock her in her bedroom. And after I locked her in her bedroom, I had to turn the TV back on. And I'd check on her every hour to make sure she was not out of her bed, she was sleeping, not moving around. And she was doing fine until Don and Ray Hammond had come home and they found her unconscious and not breathing. So Don was on the phone calling 911 when I started CPR in Charlotte. And when she was on the phone, Donna was cursing at me, calling me names, saying, why did you let this happen to her? And I didn't know that putting a child in a heated room like that, I could kill her. When they got the call that she was dead, we all were in shock and disbelief. I mean, we were screaming and crying like crazy. Even and the first time they brought her out of her bedroom, I was screaming and crying like crazy. I said, "Charlotte, don't die on me, please." I started CPR on her, tried to revive her, and it didn't work, so she died when they rushed her to pack her.
She's already been judged in the papers by the media, and it's been hearsay. The media has published supposedly her confession. Well, we don't know that she said those things, but they printed them in the paper. So people are reading that, and she's already been judged. She's already guilty as far as the people in Tioga County or Owego are concerned. If we had a lynch mob, they'd want to hang her. And they don't even know Eunice. They have no idea who they're proposing to hang.
After Charlotte's death, the police had asked Eunice to come down to the station. So Eunice went to the police station and sat from 2 a.m. until 8 a.m. of that morning on the steps waiting to talk to the police. When I had learned that Eunice had signed a confession admitting to murder, I knew that she couldn't have possibly understood what she was agreeing to.
Charlotte, baby.
We talked about, because the lawyer said her not understanding her rights and things, I said to her, well, did you understand when they said anything about a right to have a lawyer? And she said she asked for a lawyer, and they didn't get her one. And so she didn't understand, the other part about things being used against her, anything that she said or did. She couldn't understand what it meant.
If you had her stuff, you'd have more pictures, Matt.
Despite Eunice's disabilities, I'd always tried to keep her from being considered retarded, especially in school. But after her supposed confession, I realized that the same label I was avoiding was now the only thing that would keep her out of prison.
She's being held in $200,000 bail in Tioga County Jail, where she's been incarcerated since June 29th. Since the June 29th death of 3-year-old Charlotte Kurtz. Baker is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, accused of dressing Kurtz in extra clothing and locking her in a bedroom and turning up the heat until the child died of hypothermia.
All our Christmas stuff is piled up out here right now. And she's my special bird. Popeye's right here. He only has one eye. And that's Eunice's other bird. And because he was injured, we can't sell him, and so we keep him as a pet. Besides Eunice, I have 2 other daughters, Michelle, and the other is Rachel. And then I also have a son, Josh. In my household, there are several of us that have disabilities. Michelle has what you would term mental retardation, along with severe depression issues. I myself have issues with depression. And Rachel, she's just a top-notch student in school. Oh, Eunice loved the birds. She would stand there and she would talk to them, and she loved to have Rocco on her shoulder, and she just absolutely loved them.
See why it would be important to show the jury everything about Eunice's demeanor during these 4.5 hours, because even you just admitted you don't know how she was perceiving what your usual technique was. Correct?
I don't know how she perceives the questions I ask. I can't, how would I ever be able to determine that?
Well, because you didn't even suspect that she might be borderline mentally retarded, learning disabled, sleep deprived, hungry, suffering from heat, suffering from the trauma of being at 110 Spencer Avenue and seeing Charlotte Kurtz dead on the floor in front of her. You didn't suspect at all that she might be learning disabled?
No, I did not.
Okay, I see a question and answer How long have you thought about killing Charlotte?